As a Chinese ship makes its way to the Maldives, fears are growing that India-Maldives ties could now nosedive further. Can new Maldivian President Muiz's tilt away from India be reversed now? And what should New Delhi do? Use quiet diplomacy or direct confrontation? Hello and welcome to Worldview at the Hindu with me, Suhasini, Haidar. We're looking at India-Maldives ties now, and not a week really has gone by since November 2023 when Maldives elected a new president, Mohammad Muiz, pushing out the previous pro-India Ibu Soleh. And not a week has gone by where there isn't something that puts India-Maldives ties on edge. So first, let's just take a look at the 5 big flashpoints we've already seen. The first, Muiz came to power on the back of PPM's India Out campaign. He's done nothing to differentiate himself from it, distance himself or dilute it. In fact, since coming to power, he has repeatedly said Indian troops, about 80 to 100 in all, must pull out, must go home from the islands. Now remember, they work there on humanitarian operations, aircraft maintenance, and even training. But he has said they must leave by March the 15th. The next big flashpoint has been over the swearing-in ceremony. Muiz invited Prime Minister Modi, but he declined, sending a junior minister instead. And remember, that is a shift from India's previous policy or previous stance when Prime Minister Modi did go to President Soli's swearing-in. Muiz then asked to visit India, allegedly, but as New Delhi didn't respond, he proceeded then to Turkey, to the United Arab Emirates, UAE, and then for a big bilateral visit to China. That obviously then was followed by the big blowout on social media that everyone followed after Prime Minister Modi's holiday visit to Lakshadweep for New Year's, and that was played up as a counter to the Maldives for tourism. 3 Maldivian ministers, junior ministers, attacked India, mocking Prime Minister Modi in particular on social media, and then that led to a big backlash, a boycott Maldives campaign in India on social media again. Now, the ministers were suspended, but the damage was done. And take a look at the numbers this month. In the past month, the Maldives has received a record 100,000 plus tourists, so more than 1 lakh. But India is not at the top over there. It has been surpassed now by Italy, Russia, and the UK in terms of numbers. The third big flashpoint with China, and we spoke a little bit about that visit and the timing of the visit by Muiz even before he has come to India. In that visit in Beijing, meeting with President Xi Jinping, he signed 20 MOUs or agreements, making it clear he wants to diversify Maldives' dependence on India. What were the fields that those MOUs were signed in? One was in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, in food imports, health facilities, trade, and then this one, which must be watched really closely in New Delhi, an agreement to work on an action plan for a China-Maldives comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership. Now, separately, he's announced that he's also going to expand and diversify health insurance coverage to the UAE and Thailand. So Maldivian patients going abroad, they mostly come to India. It's the most preferred destination, but now can go to those other countries. He also said medicines will be imported. Many come from India, but he also said now manufacturers in Europe and the United States will be able to send them to the Maldives as well. Next was the real blowout over the hydrography agreement with India. Now remember, this was signed in 2019, but Muiz said that India will no longer have that agreement. At the same time, allowing a Chinese ship to make, and it's a survey ship, to make a port call in early February. So all of this is going to play out in the next few days and worth watching. On the other side, he also met the US Indo-PACOM commander in Male, who presented Maldives with equipment. The MNDF got some equipment. So it seems as if Maldives is trying to send the message that it does have other strategic friends. What seemed to be a big strategic setback as well was the Maldives skipping in December the Colombo Security Conclave, the CSC. This is, remember, an initiative of national security advisors of India, Maldives, and Sri Lanka, and they work across the Indian Ocean. So on the backs of all of this, on the backs of all of these seeming rebuffs from the Maldives, comes the arrival of the Xiangyang Hong 3, the survey ship in the Indian Ocean. While Male has said it is only making a port call, not conducting research India would have preferred the Sri Lankan approach. And remember, earlier this month, at the beginning of the year, Sri Lanka just said it's banning all survey research ships into Sri Lankan ports. Now, as the tones, these 5 flashpoints have played out, and as the tones and the rhetoric on both sides seems to have got shriller, here's what President Muiz said straight after he returned from Beijing.
We may be small, but that doesn't give you the license to bully us.
Now, the Ministry of External Affairs was asked about those statements. It tried to calm matters publicly, emphasizing that talks are still on. Prime Minister Modi met with President Muiz in December. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar met with Foreign Minister Musa of Maldives in January. A high-level contact group met in Male. It's due to meet again soon. So here's what the MEA spokesperson said.
It is an ongoing process. As I told you, both sides held discussions on finding mutually workable solutions. So you must look at that to enable continued operation of Indian aviation platforms that provide humanitarian and medvac services to the people of Maldives. And this is an ongoing discussion. So, things will go forward, or things will be discussed in the next meeting of the core group subsequently soon.
So we come to the question, what can India do at this point when it comes to a troublesome neighbor like the Maldives and this sudden turnaround with a change in elections? The first point is India must walk away from the bully tag. Sovereignty doesn't see size. Every nation feels sovereign, and India cannot be seen muscling a smaller country in its neighborhood. It must act its size without seeming so insecure. The second, let Muiz make his mistakes. Muiz has already faced pushback from the opposition parties for his anti-India stance. They held a press conference saying this is not in Maldives' interests. His coalition has also lost mayoral elections in Male this month, and all eyes will be on the Majlis or Assembly elections on March the 17th, where the opposition actually has larger numbers. So the question, will Muiz be able to top his own electoral victory by bringing his ruling coalition into control of the parliament as well? And in the meanwhile, India must keep its engagement going. The next suggestion, to find creative solutions for the India out problem. India and the Maldives could actually find a way to replace Indian troops with other civilian troops, civilian teams just for now, that will man the HADR and the maintenance operations until ties are better. In other words, buy some time with creative solutions. Next is to watch China and the US very closely for their ties with the Maldives. It's important to negotiate directly with Male for red lines that will ring-fence India-Maldives ties on very specific issues. While India can't demand Maldives cut down on its ties on any issue, there are some issues where India can say, here's where we are more sensitive. That's like strategic cooperation, infrastructure debt, and other issues where India and the Maldives have always worked very closely together. And finally, it's necessary to guard against social media hijacking diplomacy. There is no point having talks directly, having the leaders meet, having the Prime Minister and the President speak to each other if you allow social media, trolls or otherwise to take over what you want as the diplomatic narrative between the two countries. So what's Worldview's take on what's going on? Remember, neighborhood ties need a different kind of nurturing and treatment. Sometimes that may seem unfair to India because given all the help that it actually provides its neighbors, while India can do little about the size differential between it and its various neighbors, it can actually control impulses to be seen as the big bully in the neighborhood, seeking to teach its neighbors lessons. India must, in fact, be an indispensable power, not one that plays favorites between domestic political parties and then faces a setback at elections. This is something that's happened in Nepal, it's happened with Sri Lanka, it's happened with Bangladesh, and there is no point going through that cycle. Also remember, in the Maldives itself, we've seen that cycle play out in the last decade. There was the very firmly pro-India President Nasheed, followed by the backlash and President Yamin, with whom India had very, very bad ties, followed by President Solih, and now President Muiz. Ultimately, it really isn't personal, nor can personalized diplomacy resolve the problem. It's time to get you some Worldview reading recommendations. And we're trying in 2024 to just get you new books every time. So forgive me if I repeat any. One is this new book, which I found quite interesting. It's, I think, written a year or two ago, called The China Factor: Beijing's Expanding Engagement in Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. This is written by Shantanu Roy Chaudhary. Another book, which I've spoken about before, is Coping with the China-India Rivalry, South Asian Dilemmas, edited by C. Rajamohan and Harnek Singh. And this is definitely a very, very important book at all the various neighbors of India. The Indian Ocean, Great Game Unfolding, Interests, Determinants, and Perspectives. A bunch of very important essays. And remember, this is important because we're not just looking at the Maldives as a neighbor, but as a maritime neighbor of India. And what about India's security concerns in the entire Indian Ocean region? This one has been edited by Sandeep Kumar. Another older book called Monsoon, the Indian Ocean and the Future of American Power actually looks at some of these issues, but from perhaps a decade ago when the US and China were coming into contestation everywhere, and they may be back there. This is by Robert Kaplan. And another book about the region, which you might find interesting, called Unequal: Why India Lags Behind Its Neighbors, by Swati Narayan, who really is looking much more at all the human development indicators and why India has not learned as much from its neighbors as its neighbors actually do learn from India. So we hope you enjoyed this edition of Worldview, and do keep coming back. Do keep your feedback rolling in as well from the team. Thanks for watching.